Welcome to F101 with Friends, your pit stop for all things Formula One. Whether you're here for the stats, the memes, or just figuring out what a chicane is, we've got you covered. Buckle up, because the fun starts right now. Hi everyone, my name is Nisha, a newbie F1 girlie who is desperate to make more friends so that I can talk about this sport all the time. Each week, a new guest will join me on this journey, from seasoned F1 fans to other curious newcomers, and we will explore what it is about this million-dollar sport at gravity-defying speeds that we just can't stop watching. We'll try to break it all down in a way that's fun, relatable, and hopefully try to explain some of the tech talk. Drive to Survive, the show that launched a million F1 fans and the reason why the races are so expensive, will soon premiere. You will have the chance to catch up with mostly everything that happened in 2024, but the thing is, DTS talks in storylines and characters, so you'll get villains and heroes, and you tend to get some bias. So it just makes sense that we do an episode to catch you up on everything that you've missed in 2024 and hopefully try to stay impartial. Fair warning, this is going to be a long episode. Now to do this, I need someone who enjoys this obsession and gossip and drama just as much as me, and that is fellow newbie Anjali. How are you, Anjali?
I'm good. Hello.
So Anjali, just so that our listeners can get to know you a little bit better, what got you into F1? She asked, fully knowing the answer.
What a great question, Nisha. I think the answer is you. A weekend with you was all it took to get me into F1. Yep. Basically, there were loads of people who were trying to get me into F1 and, I had pestered me to watch it, and I said no. And then I visited you one weekend, and it just so happened to be the Las Vegas Grand Prix weekend, and that was it. Your storytelling skills were, unmatched, and just a weekend with you was enough to get me hooked and even ask you when we were watching the Grand Prix that weekend. So, yeah.
I remember. So the thing is, I have selfish motives to get you into this because you were traveling all the way to come hang out with me, and I was like, oh my god, I love her so much because we've been friends since we were 10 years old. However, I need to watch the race this weekend. The only way that I get to watch it is if I convince her to watch it as well. So I'm very glad that it worked, and I'm so glad that you stuck on, and you continue to watch the race.
Yeah, I left that weekend with all the episodes of Drive to Survive downloaded on my phone on Netflix, and and then came back home, and other friends back home were just like, that was suddenly my new identity. I was like, guys, I'm into F1
Amazing.
now. They were like, what? You were gone one weekend.
So as a follow-up to that, if you were at a dinner party with all of your favorite F1 drivers, what would you like to say to them? How would you introduce yourself to them? Think about all your favorite F1 drivers. You know that driver dinner that they do at the end of the year?
Oh my god, dude, I'm like feeling nervous just thinking about it. Like, I don't even want to, I would not say anything. I would just gawk. That's just, I would just be like, just in awe, man. I would hide behind you and just be like, I'm with her. Because Shy's coming, man.
But just to set your expectations straight, this is not happening anytime in the future.
Damn.
But
I'm getting all red here.
Yeah,
it's like the team I support.
Nice, well done. So I guess that could be your introduction. You see the color on my face? That's my team. So the 2024 season gave us thrilling fights, unexpected drama, and chaos at both ends of the grid. Let's break down the three biggest storylines that shaped the year. The three big things that stuck out to me, and I'm sure you would agree as well. The first one is Max versus Lando, the beginning of a rivalry. Ferrari versus McLaren, the real Constructors Championship fight. And the best of the worst, the midfield battles. So let's do the Max versus Lando first. For the first time in many years, Max Verstappen wasn't cruising to the title unchallenged. Everyone thought that that would be the case when he won 90% of the races in 2023, but the Red Bull that we saw last year was not the same dominant one. Maybe it was the infighting in the team, or some key technical people leaving, or maybe it was that his teammate Sergio Perez was not able to keep up with Max. I think it was a combination of all of this, plus the fact that McLaren actually had a huge upgrade midway in 2023. In fact, McLaren CEO Zach Brown had mentioned this in another podcast, that he knew that the car was going to be bad for half of 2023. Remember, they were like P17 and stuff like that. But once they had it figured out, there would be no place to go but up. So enter Lando Norris and McLaren, the team that steadily chipped away at the Red Bull's dominance. It all started in Miami, that's race 6, where McLaren's massive upgrade package turned them into a genuine threat. Lando stormed to his first ever F1 win, which was very, very emotional for everyone who was watching, taking advantage of a safety car. But more importantly, he beat Max on pure pace in the last few laps.
It also melted away Lando's old nickname, Lando No Wins, which is
So
quite
sad.
harsh. That wasn't a fluke. McLaren had arrived. The car was good, the driver was good, which meant that for most qualifying sessions, you would see McLaren up ahead in the order with Lando in P1. Unfortunately, here is where Lando picked up a new nickname, Bottler of the Year. We saw it so often. He's at the front, everything looks good, he even has the quickest reaction time, but somehow he fumbles the start and gives the place up.
I know, it was so disappointing to see it. And the number of memes that came out of this, which was like, oh, amazing, can't wait to see Lando give up the place, to whoever is standing behind him. It didn't matter who was there. It could have just been Max, like, standing there, no car, nothing. He would have still overtaken Lando. The other side of this is that everyone knows that Max is a talented and aggressive driver. He drives absolutely on the limit of the rules and seems to get away with most of his moves. After 2021, no one else has tried to fight with him on the track. It was just not worth it. Max will win anyway, and he might end up bumping your car out, so everyone just used to let him through, which is a privilege that Michael Schumacher used to enjoy in his prime years. But this time, Lando sensed some blood in the water. Max and Lando clashed in many races, Austria being the biggest one, with neither of them backing down. And unlike previous years, this wasn't just friendly racing. Lando was fighting for a title. The Red Bull wasn't used to being challenged. This was the first time we saw Max genuinely frustrated in many years.
It was so satisfying to see that as well. Besides the on-track battles, I also think there was a psychological war at play. Max and Lando are actually really good friends off the track. Max is friendly and nice outside the track, and as soon as the helmet goes on, he wants to kill Lando. For Lando, on the other hand, this is the first time he has a chance to win a title, and I don't think he's mentally there yet. It's, as I say, it's easier to be a hunter than the hunted. Plus,
Agreed.
How does a person keep up with this hot and cold behavior? All of that showed up through his media interviews, his behavior in the cool down room, and it just made him look like a little bit like a child.
Yeah, I was really rooting for Lando for a long time until I saw these, like, strange behaviors. So it made me feel a little less like, Like, I understand Max was unfair. However, your reaction was very childlike.
Yeah, man. It's like two kids just having a fight on the playground.
Two very rich children.
In a very expensive playground.
Oh, very expensive.
Very expensive toys.
So, as we all know, this is a team game. So, what about Max and Lando's teammates? What about team strategies? Max's teammate Checo was nowhere to be seen, unfortunately, causing unnecessary crashes which brought out the safety car, which then hurt Max's race. From everything I gathered on the internet, Red Bull designs a car that suits Max more than the other driver, and Max drives a very specific car. As his former teammate Alex Albon described it, it's almost like you're trying to play a first-person shooter game, but your mouse sensitivity is set all the way up. Now, you will get extreme precision if you have the talent. Not everyone has Max's talent, so Checo could just not help him. And what about the other side with Lando? Well, Oscar Piastri, who is slowly becoming a fan favorite, refused to play second fiddle to Lando. He wanted wins, points, the better strategy, and McLaren never said no. Going back to race 13 in Hungary, Oscar was supposed to be given the preferred strategy. The team gave it to Lando without telling Lando that it's not his turn to win. And in the last few laps, they had to beg him to give the place back to Oscar. It was very cringe.
Another fun fact to keep in mind, Oscar is managed by former F1 driver Mark Webber, who found himself in a very similar situation when he was teammates with Sebastian Vettel in Red Bull. Look up Multi21 for more details on that, but basically he would not let his boy be the number 2 driver, and I'm sure he has that included in Oscar's contract. Which means that this year, if Oscar's the better driver, McLaren will have to choose him as the championship contender over their homegrown hero Lando Norris.
Yeah, and the thing is, Oscar is honestly becoming my favorite very fast because let's remember that this is his second year ever in F1 and he's already taking it to Lando Norris, who's been with McLaren for, I don't know, since he was born almost. So Oscar he has no time to waste. He is just sitting there saying, I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick ass and I'm all out of gum. That's exactly what he's like.
Iconic.
So all of this fighting that was happening with Max and Lando came to a head in Brazil. That's race number 21. And if you want to watch one race from 2024, that has to be the one. It's an absolute masterclass from Max Verstappen, who started at 17th on the grid and goes on to use the torrential rain to his advantage and win the whole thing. You can love him or hate him, but you cannot deny his raw talent. This, along with the many points that Max had scored in the beginning of the season, ensured his victory. This year though, I'm sure it's going to be a much tougher fight. The second important thing was Ferrari versus McLaren, the real Constructors Championship fight. Now, this was a battle for the ages. It's not the first time that these two teams have been actively fighting. We've had Lauda versus Hunt or Senna versus Prost, but it has been a while. With Red Bull out of the game, the championship spot had opened. It had been 26 years since McLaren had won and 17 since Ferrari. This battle got intense in Ferrari. Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc fought as well. Carlos was leaving, he had nothing to lose and everything to prove. Charles refused to back down. There were some emotional wins. Australia for Carlos after barely recovering from appendix surgery. Also Mexico in front of Spanish-speaking fans and his mom. Monaco and Monza for Charles, which are his home races.
Charles's Instagram post of the Monza win is the second most liked post in all of F1 Instagram. It actually was number 1 until, of course, Hamilton dropped that sick photo of him on day 1 at Ferrari. Obviously, the GOAT will get the most liked photo.
Yes. And it was gorgeous. It's just him against that Enzo Ferrari house and one Ferrari on the side. Oof.
Extremely cool.
We saw the signs of battle in McLaren as well, but I think what saved them was that they truly did have a better car. And Ferrari did not have the best strategy every race. One weekend they looked unstoppable and then suddenly bring out the clown music. I remember doing all kinds of maths towards the last few races. If Lando wins here and takes the fastest lap, or if Charles does this and then they finish at a tie, and all of that stuff just to see who is going to win. But congratulations to McLaren for breaking the long wait, just 14 points ahead of Ferrari. I think it'll be great to see them fighting again this year.
Definitely very exciting. Other than the 2 championship fights, we also had a pretty spectacular battle happening in the midfield. So after seeing how 2023 went, I honestly thought that this year we would only be looking at the midfield for any battling. Luckily, we were all wrong, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't a fight at the back. We saw the biggest fight between Alpine, Haas, Racing Bulls, and Williams. I'm keeping Kick Sauber out of this because they had an awful season, honestly. I think they scored 4 points in the penultimate race, and they started the season with a 52-second pit stop. Oof, it was a nightmare.
So we'll go through these quickly, and Anjali, maybe you can tell the folks about any controversial stuff that happened in between.
Yeah.
Let's start with Haas. Their season started with controversy when their team principal was changed. Gunther Steiner, the guy who basically created this team with money from Gene Haas, was asked to leave. He was a breakout star thanks to Drive to Survive, and maybe The team thought he was getting more popular than the brand itself. He wasn't adding value like a team principal should. So they replaced him with their chief engineer, Ayo Kamatsu. Honestly, I think that was a great move because Haas had a decent start this season and they were consistently scoring points. They had a big crash, of course, in Monaco when Checo Perez tried to overtake in between three cars in the world's tiniest street. But overall, pretty standard stuff.
Yep, and let's not forget the Viking of F1. Kevin Magnussen was an absolute menace on track. He knew he was leaving the sport at the end of the year and he did everything in his power to make sure that his teammate Nico Hülkenberg got points for the team.
Yep.
In fact, during the course of the season, he collected enough penalty points to earn him a race ban. And that's when we saw rookie Ollie Behrman stepping in.
Yeah, and congratulations to Ollie because we will see him in Haas this year alongside Esteban Ocon as Nico moves to Audi, previously known as Sauber. So this feels like a good place to move to Alpine. Honestly, I think Drive to Survive will cover them enough because of the star-studded sponsors that they have, from Ryan Reynolds to Travis Kelce. But I want to highlight one thing. The fact that they had an awful car. Like, I remember in some of the races when they would show the front shot of it, it had this giant proboscis monkey nose. And for some reason, when they would cut to the, like, either of the, either Pierre Gasly or Esteban Ocon and show his onboard, the noise that the engine made was off. It sounded like a mixie, man, trying to, like, blend, like, bolts.
Oh, God. Yeah, I remember all the memes calling it a tractor.
It really was.
And it was super heavy as well compared to
Yes.
all the rest of the cars. So they were really not set up for success.
They were not. And they were awful throughout the season, scoring almost nothing until that biggest upset in Brazil. Somehow, both of those drivers found themselves on the podium with 35 points, which makes me think, should the point system award consistency or flukes like this? Because the flukes are definitely more exciting. Like, because of this, it put Alpine in the 6th place and gave them access to a lot more of the prize money.
You were talking about Esteban moving to Haas. So here's an interesting moment that happened last year. In the last race of the season, Haas actually had a shot of beating Alpine in the points. Ocon was asked to sit out in Abu Dhabi and the seat was given to newcomer Jack Doohan. Maybe Alpine was worried that Ocon would sit in their car and try and score points for the team that wanted him next. So, it was a little bit sad because Ocon had a special goodbye helmet that he had and he was planning to use it during the race. But, oh well.
Oh, another fun thing I read about Ocon. Apparently, he was also in contention for the Williams seat and his former team caught him trying to interview there. It's so sad the way he got caught. It's because he took his Alpine company car to the Williams factory for half a day and his like teammate was like, "What is going on here? Why are you at Williams? We can see you on the GPS."
Listen, I think all his brain cells go into like just concentrating on the driving. He's not thinking about anything else.
or appearing in some random Netflix show. Do you know that Esteban Ocon is in some Spanish Netflix soap opera or something, pretending to be the boyfriend?
Random.
Spanish or French? I'm not sure.
I mean, it could be either. His name is Esteban and he's French. So,
this is true.
Maybe it's both. We need to fact check that.
No, we know he's like from Normandy, like proper like French as they come. But yeah, Esteban is a
Not very French name. Yeah.
Neither here nor there. Moving on to Williams. They started the season with Alex Albon and Logan, what the heck is a kilometer sergeant. Sometimes it felt like there was an American on the grid just there to encourage American fans to support F1. Unfortunately, they were going nowhere with no points. Logan was a pay driver, which means he brings in a lot of sponsors and he pays for that particular seat. But he was crashing more than he was bringing in money. With no choice left, Williams had to replace him with upcoming star Franco Colapinto in Monza, that's race 7. This Argentinian absolutely stole the show. He drove aggressively, he pulled off some insane moves, brought in a ton of South American fans, and as the kids say, rizzed up every journalist. Williams did not get very far ahead in the points, but this new team brought a lot of hope.
I do want to quickly call out that Williams still suffered the most number of crashes. I really hope their team pays for mental health because those mechanics need it.
Oh my god, do you remember seeing those like races? Like they would show the crash and then they'll show the mechanics and they just looked so
You could see the
distraught.
slow motion sighs and just the sadness on their faces.
One thing I have to praise Albon for was in Canada, race 9. He pulled off this insane double overtake. So there was a wet to dry transition phase, like it had rained a little bit, so they had to change the tires. And Albon was right behind a V-Carb and an Alpine, who were battling hard into the turns. And as they were fighting each other, both the drivers compromised their exit and left a tiny gap that Albon saw. He positioned his Williams perfectly on the racing line, swooped to the left and overtook a V-Carb, and now he was staring directly at the Alpine that was about to turn right as well. Once again, he saw the tiniest gap on that right and fully pushed his car right to overtake both cars in a split second. It was gorgeous. Essentially, he used those two cars as like a chicane, which is, I don't know how that move didn't win overtake of the year, and instead it was given to Checo Perez, who pulled off some move to get P13 or some nonsense. Last but not least, we have VCARB or Visa Cash App Racing Bulls. And honestly, this team gives me a lot of heartburn. I supported them in 2024 because of my love for Yuki Tsunoda. But man, I just genuinely don't think I have it in me anymore. They were good, right? The whole of last year, they were consistent, scoring points in almost every race. And Yuki, my God, he was so good. I had such high hopes that he would finish at the top of the midfield. But with all the terrible upgrades and just awful strategies and so many changes in the team, they finished 8th.
And the saddest thing was Daniel Ricciardo being asked to leave very unceremoniously in Singapore. Yes, the team did put soft tires on him in the last lap of the race, which helped him score 1 point for fastest lap in his last race, which also immediately led to the FIA banning fastest lap points in 2025. But that's another thing. But it was really sad to watch him leave with no pomp and show, especially after everything he had done to bring people into the sport. He was the star of DTS, and his life story was the reason fans poured in. To not celebrate what he did was just a crime.
You know what else was a crime? Yuki Tsunoda being a consistent driver, delivering points, beating every teammate that came along, and still not getting that second Red Bull seat. That just broke me.
Such an injustice.
It really is. Red Bull even tested Yuki after the season was done, and he was good. He was happy with the car. He was like close to max. Sure. They gave the seat to Liam Lawson, who is a Red Bull Academy driver who has really proved himself. And yes, Yuki took a long time to get to this place. Also, he's a Honda-backed driver and Honda will no longer make engines for the Red Bull family. I know all of this, but my feelings don't care about your facts. This team just depresses me.
Aww, it's okay, buddy. Next year we'll support Ferrari and then you'll know what true depression is like.
No, please, I can't. But 2024 really was a roller coaster year, which brought us some insane records and milestones. It was a pleasure to watch, and honestly, it felt like a great ramp up for 2025. So here are some of the standout moments that we loved. Max Verstappen may have won the Imola race, which is round 7, but the gap between him and Norris in that last lap was just 0.725 seconds.
Oof.
I know.
We started the season with no rookies to having 3 rookies mid-season. So that was Ollie Behrman for Ferrari and Haas, Franco Colapinto for Williams, and Jack Doohan for Alpine. We've started 2025 with 6 rookies. Kimi Antonelli in Mercedes, Ollie for Haas, Jack for Alpine, Isaac Hadjar for Racing Bulls, and Gabriel Bartoletto for Audi.
And possibly Franco Colapinto for Alpine. He might come back in if Jack Doohan doesn't do very well.
Damn, so let's say 7-ish?
7-ish.
Rookies then?
Yes. We also had 7 different race winners this year. And the last time that happened was in 2012.
Also, I mean, just to compare, in 2023, Red Bull won all the races except for one. And obviously, the most of them were won by Max. So this was a pretty insane year.
Yes, it was. We had Lando and Oscar as first-time winners, which was quite exciting. And there were a lot of emotional home races as well. Hamilton had his first win after 945 days in his home, Silverstone, UK. Charles in Ferrari's home in Monza. And when he finally broke his curse and won in Monaco. I remember that one commentary that gave me goosebumps. It was by Alex Jakes from F1 TV. Now, I could repeat what he said, but you just have to listen to it.
For Charles Leclerc, his career was finished without the intervention of the late Jules Bianchi, who said to Ferrari, you've got to take this guy, you've got to make sure that he gets to Formula One. And what a gift that was to give. In 2017, Charles Leclerc lost his father, and in his final days, he told his father a white lie, that he'd made it to Formula One, that he'd signed the contract. It wasn't true then, but his driving has made it true now, and look what he's done with the opportunity. The grandstands he saw built as a kid growing up now rise for him, and for the first time in 93 years, this fabled race is won by one of their own. Charles Leclerc wins the Monaco Grand Prix to achieve his dream. Victory.
Oh my god, every time I hear this commentary,
Right?
it gives me chills. Every single time. From that first time till now, it's just
Beautiful.
amazing. Really, really cool.
And for someone to be able to think of this on the spot and say it,
Yeah! Amazing. I mean, it just shows also like, obviously it's coming from a place of also like emotion,
Yes.
right? Like you can't just think of that like on the spot if you aren't thinking of it emotionally. So it's just really cool. Yeah. That's why goosebumps. Gaining positions from the back when you're in a top tier car is something we all love to see. And we saw that in a spectacular way this season. Twice. First was Max in Brazil when he fought everyone in the rain and moved from P17 to winning, which in the history of Formula One has happened in just 5% of races. Winning from the absolute bottom was spectacular. Then there was Charles in Abu Dhabi going from P19 to P3. He went up almost 8 places in that first lap, and even he was pretty shocked. It was incredible.
I remember that team radio when he was like, what happened? I was like, dude, keep driving. You did something right.
We are checking. No.
No, he's gone. So just for context on we are checking, that's basically Charles like ex radio engineer who every time like in the middle of the race he would ask something and Javi, that's what his name was, Javi will answer with we are checking, and it's like I'm in the middle of the race. How do you not have this basic information? It'll be something as simple as who is in front of me, how far ahead are they?
Oh my
we are
God.
checking.
The man was checked out.
Clearly he was. I do like his new race engineer now, Brian Bozzi. He seems pretty nice. There's a lot of weird things that I notice about like Charles when he's driving. Like he needs to have some kind of obstruction or something that has happened in the beginning to make him angry, so he gets into the space like to win. But while he's racing, he needs his engineer to be like, "You're doing very well. Please keep this up. This is fantastic."
He needs affirmations. Me too, Charles. Me too. I love that he's just like us, the beautiful angel.
Oh my god, your bias is showing.
I mean, I did say, like, my face reflects my team.
Correct. We keep coming back to Canada, but honestly, it was a very exciting race. George in his Mercedes and Max in his Red Bull both set the exact fastest time in qualifying of 1 minute and 12 seconds. But since George did it first, he got to keep the position.
In the cost cap era, most teams are afraid of the Constructors Championship, which is basically the driver that costs the team the most with their crashes. Williams was for sure the top of the list, with Albon, Logan, and Franco causing damages worth $11 million. But the winner really is Sergio Checo Perez of Red Bull, who caused $4.8 million worth of damage all by himself. On the other hand, Pierre Gasly of Alpine kept his nose out of trouble and caused $0 of damage, which is a little bit unbelievable. But it is a bit debatable because Ocon did bump into him in Japan and cause flow damage. But maybe that went into Ocon's account instead.
Special shout out to Nico Hülkenberg, who scored 41 out of the 58 points that Haas had.
Nico Hülkenberg. For those that don't know, that's one of the many Daniel Ricciardo-isms. Man, I'm gonna miss him.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss him too. It's back from when they were teammates in Renault.
Oh yes, that's it. And Fernando Alonso of Aston Martin became the first driver to start 400 Grand Prix, continuing his legendary career. I cannot believe that man is 43 years old. He still drives and reacts like he's in his 20s.
I don't know if you saw the F1 75 live show. There was one thing that Jack Whitehall was talking about. Like one of the comments that he made was, oh, we saw some great rivalries, Max versus Lando, something versus something, Fernando Alonso versus time.
Hey, that's great. Excellent.
Right. It's also so true. Like there were races where you can see the back of his car just snapping, but somehow he manages to bring it into control. Any other driver in that case would have just gone off into the dirt.
Crazy.
Like his teammate, Lance Stroll.
Oh, I love that there's no mention of Lance Stroll. I mean, rightfully. Correctly.
What do you want me to mention about him? He was Canadian.
He was a rich boy.
Yeah.
That is it.
That is also
defining factors are that.
The last thing we need to cover off is all the drama that happened mostly off track. We've spoken about the FIA Liberty Media struggles, the driver versus FIA clashes, Susie Wolf versus the FIA, basically everyone versus the FIA. So if you want to refresh your memory, please go back and check in the previous episode. So let's take a look at few of the team scandals. The first is George versus Max. Now, George Russell of Mercedes and Max Verstappen of Red Bull haven't really been best friends, and they've had their fights in the past. In 2023, George rammed into Max in Baku, destroying his side pod. Max confronted him, and George said something nonchalant like, "Oh, I had no grip." To which Max replied, "Mate, we all have no grip. We all need to leave a little space, but expect it next time the same, duckhead." It's not duck, but you know what I mean.
Your impression is excellent. You had me fooled. I was about to be like, da 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 da.
God. Basically, Max doesn't like it when people use his own tactics against him, and being super Dutch, he doesn't hold back. In Qatar last year, during the qualifying session, Russell reported Verstappen for allegedly blocking him, leading to Max receiving an unprecedented one-place grid penalty. This decision did not sit well with Verstappen or with any of us who were watching, who felt like George went after him in front of the FIA. Post-qualifying, tensions flared when Max reportedly threatened George to put his effing head in the wall. Russell later called Max a bully, saying he was ready to take the fight to him on track. My question is, with what car? I don't know what he was thinking because the Mercedes was a tractor. Spoiler alert, Max won Qatar anyway. So what was the point of giving him that one-place grid penalty? I don't know. At the next race in Abu Dhabi, the team principals got pulled in as well, with Mercedes boss Toto Wolff calling Red Bull boss Christian Horner a yapping little terrier for the comments he made about George. To which Horner replied, "Rather be a terrier than a wolf." But what is this nonsense?
No one
clearly way
No
cooler.
one would rather be a terrier than a wolf. What is he on? Silly man.
I have no idea.
Sit down. Yapping little terrier. What I found hilarious about this is that not one person spoke to the other directly. It was all through media interviews. Like, they're a bunch of teenagers. And in the middle of all of this, Max was just saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to be a dad." It really shows that George really does not occupy enough of Max's mental real estate. In fact, in the annual drivers' dinner, all the drivers teased George and asked him to sit next to Max, which Max was totally okay with, but George politely declined.
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the time when Harry and Ron are fighting in the Goblet of Fire book.
Yeah.
And then they use like different people. Oh, Padma told, Pavati told, Lavender told me to tell you. That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. Or just generally, like when you're fighting with your sibling, and then you're just like, oh, mom said do this, or dad said do that, or whatever, and you're just like, okay, but it's really you trying to tell your sibling something directly.
Exactly.
You use your parents as proxy.
Yes, pretty much. So they were using the media and journalists as proxy.
Which is much more fun for us as viewers.
It is a lot more fun because we get to see it. Exactly. Then we had papaya rules and mini aeros. So McLaren is orange color team, but they call themselves the papaya team because orange army has traditionally been reserved for Dutch fans across sports. Papaya rules is something we heard for the first time in Monza, and it gave us collective cringe because essentially it means keep the race clean. You can fight each other, but don't, crash into each other. It's sort of like team orders, right? I understand that this was like shorthand for rules of engagement, but it led to a lot of infighting within the team and may have even cost the chance at the Drivers' Championship. Will papaya rules come back in 2025? Probably, because they're just embracing the cringe.
And what won't come back in 2025? McLaren's little cheating with the DRS. Nisha spoke about DRS in episode 1 with Bharti, so if you want to know more about that, go check that out. In round 14 of the Belgium Grand Prix, McLaren brought a new rear wing which had a little more flexibility with the DRS, giving the car a tiny bit more speed. By round 18 in Singapore, all the other teams called it cheating, and McLaren said, okay, haha, you got us, and dropped that particular wing. The sad part, they weren't even bringing that wing to Singapore. That wing was specific to tracks with low drag, or more straights basically. McLaren had already used that wing in Monza, Baku and Spa, and the only place left was Vegas. So my question is this really cheating? Or did they just find a loophole like this, Smarties?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, you clearly lean towards loophole, right? Like, that's the whole point of being a constructor is you read the rules and then you find the thing that, oh, they didn't specifically say I can't do this.
It's just good lawyer behavior, right? I mean, you find the loopholes and then you use it.
Exactly, yeah. But Red Bull, on the other hand, were caught for something definitely shady. Now, Parc Fermé rules means that once your car is set up for qualifying, you cannot change anything. That's why you have the practice sessions to figure out the best setup. If you break Parc Fermé, you will get a grid place penalty for the race. This includes if you set up the car for qualifying and then the driver crashed it and now you have to rebuild, too bad, penalties. Usually all the teams have to submit their technical specs to the FIA, and they seem to have found that post-qualifying, the Red Bull mechanics are able to make a small change to the ride height in their car through the bib to help the driver be better in the race. Now, the bib is located beneath the car and it sort of affects the airflow at the bottom. Adjusting the bib's position changes how the air enters the tunnels under the car's floor and therefore has an influence on the aerodynamics. In Circuit of the Americas, or round 19 in Austin, Texas, the FIA went down to the Red Bull garage to check, can you actually do this without anyone seeing? Red Bull made a big deal of showing that it takes a really long time to change, you can't do it secretly, it's impossible to do quick adjustments. Now, F1 is all about cheating and lying and getting away with it, so I don't really believe them. Either way, the FIA let it go, much to the annoyance of the other team principals, but added that monitoring this part would become more stringent.
Moving on to Alpine's drama and all the pain that they went through. Let's call it Alpine. That was terrible. At the beginning of the season, they had a new team principal, Bruno Famin. Then they replaced him with Oliver Oakes. They changed their technical director and head of aerodynamics. They even brought back highly controversial Flavio Briatore, known for Crashgate in 2008, which I'm sure we'll talk about another day. The other big issue for Alpine was that the management was considering moving away from Renault as an engine manufacturer for the team. The thing is, Alpine is owned partially by the French people. And then about 100 employees of the engine manufacturer staged a silent protest at Monza on the opening day of the Italian Grand Prix. But unfortunately, by October, Renault announced that it will not be the official manufacturer and Alpine will save on some costs and go with Mercedes. We see they're cutting costs and trying to get back up on the grid, but it's an uphill battle. With Flavio in the mix, known for his amazing deal making, we might actually see Alpine get sold off at some point. Let's see.
I remember like one of the I saw this Nico Rosberg video that someone had put out where he was talking about how like, oh yeah, I got an email from the Alpine team saying that, oh, do you want to spend some money and buy a little portion of it. So I would not be surprised. It would be sad because Renault has been in the mix for so long. Yeah.
They just gotta up their crowdfunding and get more celebrities to buy in. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all. Get more celebrities in.
I think one other side note, this has nothing to do with racing, but Pierre Gasly has been steadily losing his hairline. Poor guy.
Yo.
But at the beginning of this year, he was suddenly bald and everyone's like, oh, wait, what? What happened here? And if you take a look at his pictures, you can see there's a little bit more to the hairline there was before.
Yep.
Somebody made a trip to Turkey.
So sad. Baba.
The 2024 F1 season was packed with drama, records, and surprises. Max Verstappen clinched his 4th title, but Lando Norris pushed him hard. McLaren made history, winning their first Constructors Championship in 26 years. Records tumbled with Verstappen joining Prost and Vettel on 4 titles. Oh, and of course, when we saw the random 11th Apex GP on the grid for the new F1 movie, Brad Pitt pretending that he won in Abu Dhabi, a shot of the driver fainting in the middle of the track, all of that was very exciting to see.
I'm not sure that movie is going to be biblically accurate, but it's directed by the Top Gun guy, so it will be entertaining for sure. I do expect it to be quite cheesy, but does that mean I'm not going to go see it? Wrong.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to be watching that movie in theaters, and then when it releases on Apple TV, and then just through the summer break, that's what's going to keep me company, along with this podcast.
Oh, I just cannot wait. I cannot wait for the F1 memes that will spawn from the movie clips as well.
Yes.
It's going to be great.
In fact, I remember the Abu Dhabi race, George, he was P4, right? Because Hamilton overtook him in the last lap. But then for the movie, they put Brad Pitt on top along with Charles and George is like, I don't deserve to be here. Also, Charles himself was so depressed because he wanted to be much higher up, but then he's just like, great, now first I saw Lando over here, now I'm seeing this rando over here.
I wonder which is worse.
Oh, yes. I don't know actually.
It's just as bad.
Exactly. But basically, the stage has been set for 2025, and I'm hoping for plenty of chaos.
Yeah, I mean, considering how insane 2024 was, I mean, to compare, it was it took a lot of time. A lot of races had to pass for us to realize who was actually going to win the Drivers' Championship. And that was a stark contrast to the year before, 2023, where Max had basically cinched that title very, very early on in the year.
Yes.
So 2025 is going to be chaotic and wild for sure.
Yeah, because all the teams have reached their best upgraded versions of themselves in this new era. There's rookies wanting to prove themselves and take risks. I genuinely agree with you when I say that this is going to be the best season of F1 in a very long time.
I can't wait.
But before we sign off, I need to hear from you, Anjali. What is your boldest prediction for the 2025 season?
That would be shaving your head is going to make you more aerodynamic and give you an edge. Last year, it was losing an appendix. So this year, it's all about that hairline.
Okay, I mean, if that is true, that'll be hilarious. However, if I see bald Carlos Sainz, I quit.
Oh my god. Yes, this sport will have to be shut down if that happens. There's absolutely no way that I'm allowing that man to lose not even a single one of his beautiful dresses. It's just not. It's unacceptable.
Right.
Unacceptable. The FI should make a new rule just for him to not cut his hair.
Not allowed to shave your head. Only Carlos. Everyone else do whatever the hell you want.
Yes, correct.
So you're going to be supporting Ferrari this year.
I mean, yes. It's the only obvious thing about me in this entire episode.
I will say this, like, I have been seriously evaluating all of the options, and I feel like Ferrari is the only option this year, right?
Yeah.
Just, like, think about it, because McLaren, okay, great, yes, they're wonderful, and I love Oscar Piastri, but Lando is so annoying. I mean, if he changes his ways, fine, I'll think about being papaya, but otherwise, I cannot in good conscience, just cannot. Mercedes, I mean, they are the team that chucked Lewis Hamilton out. You can go away. Not happening.
Mm-hmm.
Red Bull, honestly, with Red Bull, it's like they have such a strange way of functioning, right? I just don't like the organization anymore, with everyone just like being thrown out unceremoniously, and it gives me ick.
Yeah.
Christian Horner gives me ick.
That is a great way of putting it. As much as I admire Max for his talent and just like,
Yes.
drive for winning in this sport, this team is just nah. That's my scientific reason.
Exactly. I heard that Aston Martin might be offering him like $1 billion to move to Aston, whatever.
Gross.
Which,
But fine.
but if they get rid of Nepo Baby and it's Max and Alonso in a car made by Adrian Newey, I mean,
Are
That would
we
be an
voicing
insane
our
thing.
delusions at this point, or our predictions? Like, that is never gonna happen.
fine. But so that brings me to Aston. Like, I love Fernando, but like, who can support Lance Stroll? I mean, Lance, you are so much happier snowboarding, okay? I've seen the videos. You are smiling, you are thrilled. You have never been that thrilled to be near your F1 car. Consider quitting, my friend. You will be happy.
How much would you bet that now at this point it's just his dad making him do the races? Because it's like, I paid for all this, now you have to do it. You know, it's like,
Oh my
it's
God,
like,
is it?
Yeah, it's like me and karate classes, and like I had no choice. All I did was tell my mom, yeah, I think it'd be cool to kick people, and she was like, okay, I'm gonna put you in karate for 5 years, and I was like, no.
Oh my God. That's exactly.
And guess who's
Yes.
a brown belt now, which was not my choice.
Yes, Lance Stroll's father, Lawrence Stroll, is a Mallu man. Agreed.
Yeah.
But from the top teams, there's literally no option except for Ferrari. Like, you have to support Ferrari. The Fred Vasseur as a team principal is funny as hell.
He's awesome.
Charles Leclerc is great. His qualifying is so good. Then there's Lewis Hamilton.
Goat.
I don't need to say beyond that.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So, fine, I guess I'll join you there, and I'll be miserable when they put wet tires on in an absolute dry race and expect Charles to go and win anyway.
I guess the only Achilles heel, the thing that could slip them up is their strategy.
I know.
So we shall see. That's the thing that's been keeping us on our toes with Ferrari for all these years. I hope there's an improvement there. We'll see.
I'm hoping that Lewis has brought in some of his expertise to this, where he's been like, hey guys, have you considered putting slicks in a dry race? And everyone at Ferrari is like, which plan is that? That is plan normal. There is no letter to this.
Dude, so many insights. This is just for our benefit. Plan A, plan B, plan C. Dude, how I would love, in your bingo, one thing I would add is Lewis forgetting which plan is which. It's like, plan C. It's like, which one's that?
That's a good point. That brings me to the fact that I'm going to have an F1 journal this year. And I have a little template. So if anyone is interested, please DM us and I'm happy to share that template. So you guys can have, it's kind of fun. It gives you little stats about, I did it last year as well, which is what kind of helped me with this podcast actually. Like, especially this episode, to remember everything that happened.
So much drama. It's got to be documented.
Yes, exactly. So I can share that if anybody wants a template. Anjali, I know I'm already sending it to you. So
Yes, give me it.
It'll be fun to exchange notes next. There is so much more, and Anjali and I can keep yapping on and on. But maybe we can talk about what happened in 2024. We can take it like race by race. Next week, F1 is officially starting again in Australia, and we will be back to tell you everything about the track, famous corners, exciting battles, and basically get you prepped for the race. To our amazing listeners, what do you think? Drop your hot takes in the comments and send us a message or tag us in your wildest predictions. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and share F101 with friends because this community is just getting started. If you have any queries or you want to be a friend on the pod, please reach out to me on Instagram. The link is in the description. Thank you, Anjali, for being part of this episode. I've been your host, Nisha, and I'll see you on the next episode of F101 with Friends.